Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You probably can't hear me too well. Now you can. It's Nick and Nate and Ethan welcoming you back to another edition of Stranded in Pittsburgh. Not a lot to talk about this week, but there's enough. And I think we might even get some internal debates, which I don't think we've had one of those in a very long time. Ethan is in a car, which means someone in the neighborhood might think he's a crazy man if they just see him at the wheel screaming. But we'll see if that ends up coming into play. But anyway, fellas, it's great to be back. How you doing tonight?
Good. I'm doing well. It's gloomy. It's been rainy the past several days, so just glad to hash it up with you guys tonight. Brighten my Thursday after a gloomy week, so can't wait to get after it.
Yeah, I'm doing well as well, and man, we got a lot of Bucko talk to discuss, especially with an exciting home opener coming up tomorrow.
Absolutely. Grab your canoes, grab your kayaks, grab your pontoon boat from your rich uncle. It's going to be a fun night tomorrow on the North Shore if you can make it down there. More on that in a little bit, because one team that we have done nothing but dog on for the past 2 months or so has found themselves in playoff contention after a very gutsy win against the New Jersey Devils. If you haven't picked up on it yet, I'm talking about the Penguins. They're already losing to the Capitals as we record this. But anyway, we'll act like there's still a good amount of hope. But yeah, Nate tweeted about it 3 points out after that win against the Devils, which looked like it was just going to be another, kind of gut punch. But then Crosby once again steps up. We got Malkin in there. We got Ricard Raquel making some big moves. A hell of a game. It was like, where's this energy been all year? All those times they looked lethargic. All those times they looked like they couldn't care less. And they have an effort like that against a team like the Devils gives you a little bit of hope, which is what you need, especially when you look at the hit row of teams they have to play to close out the season here. But there's someone who's a lot more suited to touch on this, and that's the man in the middle, Nate Breisinger. So, Nate, take it away here.
Well, I want to start off by saying, either of you, have you ever had a dog or know someone, family member, friends that had a dog that it's just on its last leg, 14 years old, and you're like, just go to the light. Just go to the light, and they won't? That's the
Walk
goddamn
towards
Pittsburgh. That's the goddamn Pittsburgh Penguins this year.
I have to go to this. There's literally two dogs walking right past me right now as we speak. Just want to point that out. But no, that's not where they're at right now. But go ahead.
That's the Pittsburgh Penguins right now. They were 9 points out just a few weeks ago. They blew up when they were up 4-0 against Colorado at Colorado, and then they lost 5-4 to overtime. And how many times have we said, that's the dagger. This game's the dagger. The terrible Calgary game where they let up a couple late goals, the Edmonton games where they've gotten blown out of the water, and then all of a sudden they're still floating down the flooded Monongahela River. And there they are, 3 points out of the playoff spot. And Nick, I have to correct you, but as we're recording this, you said the Pens were losing. They're winning 1-0.
I read that wrong. I apologize.
Yeah. Ryan Shea. So, I mean, who would have thought that 2 weeks ago the Penguins would be playing in this game against the team they're chasing, 3 points out? I mean, also didn't think the Capitals would be at this point in the season in a wild card spot either. But stranger things have happened, and two teams that are like both hanging on there at the end of their sort of runs of greatness with Ovechkin and Crosby. But you talk about the way Crosby's played. He went on a stretch where he was scoreless in 13 of 14 games at the end of February going into March, and then all of a sudden he has 6 goals and 15 points in his last 6 games. He's just gone on a tear like any other, and of course he's setting milestone after milestone, becoming just the second player to reach 19 seasons of at least a point per game, tying the great one in Wayne Gretzky. And if he does it again next year, of course, he takes that record. But they're riding him, and they're also riding the play of Alex Nedeljkovic, making his 7th straight start. Tristan Jarry's been out sick. And Nedeljkovic, I mean, that's the thing that a lot of people were talking about this year. This Pens team has some goaltending depth for once on a year that they weren't as good offensively. And now it's all starting to click. They had that vintage performance in New Jersey on Tuesday after the win against the Rangers on Monday. Two teams that are solid teams, and the Devils are a team also trying to chase. And now with the loss to the Pens, and then they lost to the Rangers, they're on the outside looking in, where the Penguins were just a few games ago. So the thing is, though, I just don't know if the Penguins have it in them. I mean, like you said, Nick, they have a very difficult remainder of a schedule. When you look at the Caps tonight, and even if they do win, they're still a point out. But the Lightning, Toronto, Detroit, another team chasing for a playoff spot, Bruins, Nashville, Islanders. All of those teams are either in the playoff spots or a couple points out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very difficult stretch there. Some saving grace. Tampa Bay's at home. Detroit, Boston, and Nashville are all at home. Ending the season against the Islanders, who I think give the Penguins fits a lot of the time. That's a tough game to end the season on, especially on the road. But we'll see what happens. If you get hot here, it's going to obviously be a good thing. But, you get a little run like this going into the playoffs, that can be massive. That can kind of offset all of those midseason struggles they had. It's all about who can get hot at the right time. And if they get hot against this kind of competition, that bodes really well for them, even as a wild card team in the playoffs. And even though Penguins can't fly, they sure as hell can swim. They're keeping their heads above water right now. And we'll see where things go here over
Yeah,
the next couple of weeks.
yeah, they've just been on a roll, and yeah, like you guys said, if they get hot at the right time, they're going to be tough to stop. I mean, you've seen the play that Crosby has had. Even Gino over these past couple of games has really stepped up after a very lackluster season. So just to see them, even in this spot where none of us thought that they would be at this point in the year with 7 games to play. I mean, it's one to where if you're a Pens fan and you've seen how they've played over the past decade and a half, I mean, you can't be more happy to see this type of competitive play this late in the season for how badly this season has gone for them thus far.
Yeah, the last point I'll make, feeding off of what you just said, Ethan, is the reason why they're in this spot is that experience. Obviously, Sid has done a lot, but even the guys who are below him, Malkin's starting to step up a little bit. I mean, just for how bad they were in the beginning of March and just how much has gone wrong throughout the season. The terrible power play, the own goal. I mean, everything. And for them to still be in the spot, it's that veteran experience because they've been there before. They know how to do it and get themselves back in, and that starts with Sidney Crosby.
For sure. Crosby's been the light in the bottle right here for this Penguins team. You said it, Nate. 15 points in his last 6 games. That stretch kind of coincided with all of the Jake Gensel going out, Gensel getting traded stuff, and everyone was like, "Was Crosby a Jake Gensel merchant for these last couple of years?" I'm glad he's kind of shut down that narrative. A new narrative that's trending on Penguin Twitter. And Nate, you can shut this down right now if you deem it's not the time to have this conversation. But you mentioned the kind of run Nedeljkovic is on right now. And there's already people, which again, this has come up prior in the season about, oh, we paid Jari all this money and look what's happened. Is that a conversation you think we need to be getting into right now, or do we need to see how things go the rest of this season?
Yeah, I think it's a good conversation to have as soon as the season's over. But yeah, I mean, we talked that both goalies could have been on the market during the deadline. And I mean, I don't know if Nedeljkovic is your bona fide number one starter, if you can make him that. I mean, he has played some really good hockey in the past, and now he's showing it again kind of all season. He had a couple of bumps, but I don't know. I saw the word thrown out there. He's expendable. I mean, he could be. So
Yeah, we'll see. We'll revisit that once the offseason begins. We beat the Steelers quarterback storyline to death during those few weeks of the offseason where all that was up in the air. So we'll let Nate get his 2 cents in regarding the goalie situation and a lot more. But I like to think we'll talk about Penguin playoff hockey, at least for a little bit here in the coming weeks. But as always, Penguin Talk brought to you by Pure Hockey, NHL apparel, hockey gear, anything you need for some stick puck. Pure Hockey's got it. I'm really sorry about saying stick puck. That sounded really funny in my head, but it ended up being really stupid. But yeah, purehockey.com, a great friend of the show. Thanks to our friends at Stadium Scene TV for hooking us up with them. And appreciate them always sponsoring our Penguins discussions where Nate talks to me and Ethan, who nod our heads approvingly. Speaking of Ethan, here's something where he can, take the reins a little bit here. It's time for another Ethan Morrison ad read. And Ethan, if you hit the private chat, I know you're on your phone in a car, but hopefully you're able to see that without interrupting the whole show. But if you can just read that at your earliest convenience, and if you need me to stall for you a little more, just let me know. But until then, I'll give it over to you.
Let's see if I can. Oh, I see the private chat. I clicked on the wrong one. Ah, there we are. Ethan here. Did you buy your Stranded Sports merch yet? It would make my day really special if you would buy one. Maybe I'll even have enough money to buy my favorite drink, a Shirley Temple. Or maybe I can add to my Webkins collection. My favorite stuffed hippo, Mr. Stinky Poo, needs a friend. Click the link in the description for more.
Thank you, Ethan. Very well said. I hope Mr. Stinky Poo finds his friend. We had some friends down on the North Shore who are having a great time because the Pirates have started off very hot. Lost their first game last night. Looks like they're going to win tonight, being Thursday, April 4th, against the Nationals here. Home opener tomorrow. Looks like Jay Jones going to be on the bump against the Orioles. Blackout crowd. Vibes are high down there at PNC. But this is where we were last year. The really hot start in April, blah, blah, blah. Is it sustainable? And we kind of saw how that went. But anyway, we got to appreciate the hot start while we have it, while we can buy into all of these little narratives we were creating over the offseason and spring training. Ethan, you look like you are bursting at the seams right there, like an Aroldis Chapman fastball. So why don't you jump right into how you're feeling about the club, maybe something you're really liking right now?
Yeah, the Pirates are in a similar situation to where they were last year with how they started off the year. Obviously, how they played in Cincinnati and then going to Boston to get the sweep. Pirates in a similar situation this year after this 4-game sweep in Miami, taking one, now possibly 2 of 3 in DC. I didn't get a chance to watch the game last night, but they probably should have had a shot to win Wednesday night's contest after the off day on Tuesday. But yeah, Nick, like you said, they're in a very similar situation as they were last year. Going home, they're going to play a very, very good and young Baltimore Orioles squad Friday, Saturday, Sunday to kick off the home schedule. But for the Pirates, they're going to be on the road for a majority of the month of April. So it's going to be very telling where this team will be at towards the beginning of May. Obviously, the Pirates had a more balanced schedule in terms of home and road games last year, but I think this is going to be a great test for this team. You see how this pitching rotation has been over the course of this first week of the season. They've been very, very strong. That was one of the weak spots of this roster, of this active roster, was this pitching rotation. You're getting good outings from Martin Perez, a guy that not a lot of people thought would have that much success. Obviously, Mitch Keller has been shaky to start off. Jared Jones, even though he let up a decent amount of runs, struck out 10 in his major league debut. Guys like that. Marco Gonzalez even having a solid outing in Washington on Monday. So that rotation is held up very, very strong. The bullpen as well, with all the injuries that it has sustained, for it to be as solid as it has been over this first week and a half of the year, or this first week of the season, is a very, very good sign. Obviously, small sample size, but for the most part, a very, very good start to the season. And I think you got to look at the hitting as well. Has just been phenomenal. Guys contributing across the board, not just one guy, not Key Brian Hayes, not O'Neill Cruz just contributing, but everyone from top to bottom of the order. Even Rowdy Tellez getting in on the action today with a little dinker single up the middle to clear the bases loaded. So just guys like that, just being able to contribute in great times. And I think one of the other things about the hitting so far has just been the way that the Pirates have been able to work counts. And I don't think that has been said enough over the course of this first week. I know a couple of people have said it, but just their ability to work counts, get pitch counts up over the course of the first few innings. I think Josiah Gray today had 78, 79 pitches through 4 innings, got him out of there in the 5th inning with 100 pitches. That's what you need. You need to get to the bullpen, and the Pirates are doing just that. They're attacking. They're just hitting the ball well, and they're being smart with their approach at the plate. So overall, a very, very good start for this team. Obviously, like I said, a very big test this weekend against the Orioles. Then they play the Tigers for 2, which have also had a very hot start this season. And then they hit the road again, which will be a very big test against Philly. And then they get the Mets after that. So, like I said, yeah, they're going to be on the road a lot. So I think in terms of last year, I think this is going to be more a test for them. But like I said, very, very great, solid start to the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's kind of that energy. And I know, again, you don't want to keep comparing everything to last year. These are two very different teams, but it never seems like they've really been out of it this year. We saw Bailey Falter not do so well in that first start. Who would have guessed? Um, but they bounced right back. They rallied back, and this offense seems to have that ability to rally. You've never really felt this year. Granted, again, very small sample size, but you've never felt like they're out of it. They have not let it feel as if they are out of a game or as if you can turn it off. This has been a team that has battled, and it seems like they're having fun out there. I've enjoyed watching this team, and I know that's easy to say when they're winning, but they kind of have this contagious energy about them thus far, and I want to see more. And that's probably good since we're less than 10 games into the season, but I'm excited to see where this goes. One guy that I'm really liking so far is Brian Reynolds. Last year he was hitting well over 300 for what, a month and a half, 2 months, and then he just slowly kind of tracked down. It went back up a bit, went down. I think it ended in the low 260s, his batting average that was. Still had good home run and RBI numbers, but you want the guy who you paid all that money to be able to get on the base a little more than a 263, 262 average would indicate. And he's done a great job this year. He's homered already. I think he has 9 RBIs, hitting 323. That might change a little bit because the game is still in the final stages right now, I believe. I don't believe it's gone final yet. But, if they paid Brian Reynolds, I want to see him play like the Brian Reynolds we saw at the beginning of last season. So, if anything, the guy's a real hot starter to begin the year. But that's your guy. That's the guy you paid. I want to see him doing well, and he has done that and then some so far. Key
Right.
Brian
Yeah.
Hayes, though, a little worried.
Yeah.
3 airs already this year.
Yeah.
Take that as you will. It's early, getting out some kinks, whatever. But we did see him flash the leather quite a bit in spring, made some great plays. So you're left a little worried, a little concerned about that. The Miami game on Good Friday, I think he had 2 or 3 snafus. I think only 2 officially were errors, but he just had some plays that were very uncharacteristic. A bad throw, just mistimed a hop. You hope that's just working things out. As I said, you hope that's not something that's going to stick with him the entire season. But this infield should be really good, especially the corner there at third, the hot corner. And then, you have Cruz, the giant, standing there at shortstop. That should be a pretty safe part of the field defensively. And Hayes has the capabilities. Guys, a Gold Glover. So he's capable of it. So it's a little worrisome to see that, but just one little nitpick I have so far this season. But I'd like to think that'll be rectified once things get in the swing a little more.
Yeah, for me, I want to send my condolences to both you two and Nick literally, but I feel bad that you guys aren't going to be down on the North Shore tomorrow because luckily my dad and I got our tickets about a month ago, and that place is going to be like a playoff game. It's going to have a playoff feel to it, and I think it's something that could foreshadow what could happen later this season because the way the Pirates have started and the way the hype is surrounding the team and my prediction so far is not looking too bad with 86 wins. But I mean, this team, the way they've started, and again, I thought it was going to be the Bats, and it has been so far. I mean, they're I think 4th coming into today's game versus the Nationals in hits with 72. They lead the entire league with on-base percentage. So they're finding ways to get on. Everyone is hitting. And I can't remember who said it. Might have been Shelton, but just discussing how in the first series, there are 24, 25, 26 guys that are on the roster. Every single guy chipped in to the win, to those 4 wins. And that's what this team has done so far right now. You talk about Brian Reynolds hitting. You talk about O'Neal Cruz, what he's been able to do. But then you have Jack Swinski hitting a home run yesterday. You have Connor Joe with the 2-run jack today. Guys are hitting up and down the lineup. My favorite guy so far has to be Michael A. Taylor. Just the way he has hit the ball, his approach at the plate. He obviously gives you a safety option in the outfield to track down balls because the outfield's not obviously what it was 7-8 years ago with the speed that they had because Reynolds and Swinski just don't have a ton of it, but it's nice to have Michael Taylor out there that does have the speed. But I think after his hit midway through the game today, Ethan, I don't know if you were listening to it, but Joe Block said that He had the second highest batting average in the major leagues behind Mookie Betts,
Yep.
which is crazy to think about in the way he's come along, and he's not even started every single game, and he's up
Yep.
there the way he's batting. But obviously, there's some concern with your number one guy and Mitch Keller, and the outings he's had so far not been too great. And he obviously didn't finish off last season too swell either. So there's some room to improve. But as your number one, he's got to be a little bit better. But there's a ton of excitement, and I love the way that Jared Jones pitched. Really looking forward to seeing him on the mound after 10 strikeouts in Miami. So, hey, it's been a fun first week. Obviously, a ton of baseball. It's a small sample size, but again, something that our good pal John Parado wrote about. You got to enjoy it. Can't overthink it. You just got to enjoy it right now if you're Pirates fans.
Absolutely. And if Kutch hits 300 tomorrow night, Nate, we're going to have a very civil discussion on Saturday at basketball, at a little pickup game there. But yeah, tomorrow also, Ethan, you can probably correct me if I'm incorrect here. Altoona, Bubba Chandler's starting. AAA,
Yep.
Paul Skeens is starting. MLB, Jared Jones is starting. That
Yep.
could be 3 guys that are all in the rotation a year or 2 from now together. And we're going to get a preview of all 3 of them in one night tomorrow at 3 different levels.
Mhm.
You got to be excited. And Nate, it's just a testament to what you just got to enjoy it. Right now, there's all that hype, all that hope. Capture it right now and just enjoy it for what it is and worry about the future a little bit later. Just take it all in right now while things are going fairly well and just ride the wave. That's pretty easy to do. If you've seen any pictures of downtown Pittsburgh this week from all the rains, it might build an arc up here. But yeah, any final thoughts here, fellas, on the Pirates before we move on to the Steelers?
No, I think it's just a matter of being able to sustain what they've been able to build over this first week of the season and just try to keep everyone healthy. I think that's the biggest thing, that if they're able to keep guys healthy and be consistent with the way they go out, and not only just how Shelton constructs his lineups. I think that's one of the biggest things. He's switched a lot of things up every single day. I think if that remains constant and consistent, and there's not a lot of injuries and not a lot of gaps to fill from what they are already at, the Pirates, I think they can just can continue to roll. Obviously, I've not faced a lot of great competition to begin the year, so you kind of want to see a little bit of a bigger test moving forward, and they'll get that in the weeks to come. But yeah, just overall, just continue, like Nick said, to ride that wave and just enjoy it while these Buccos are hot early on.
Yeah, Ethan, that's exactly where I was going to go with the lineup construction. I mean, it's going to switch every which way throughout April, maybe into May. But now's the time you experiment with that and see who's going to fit where, what bats you want where to be the most effective in your lineup. Because I think, again, like I've said a couple times, I think the Pirates are really going to win based off of the way they're hitting. Pitching's going to be a struggle this year, but I mean, when you're scoring 6+ runs a game, I mean, you're going to find yourself in the win column pretty often.
Definitely. And I know it seems like maybe that's already a trend that's getting abandoned, but please don't put Kutch in cleanup. Please don't. I get it. I get why, but we don't need him to be our cleanup batter. And that pains me to say that, but we have some other guys that I think would be a little more suited for the cleanup spot. But you know what? They're playing around with it. You don't want to nitpick about a lineup card too much this early in the season, as long as the right names are on there. So I digress. I just put my hands up, but you can't tell because we're in a tiny little cubicle here. But yeah, we'll move on now to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mark Caboli of The Athletic saying they ain't taking a center in the first round. I said, oh. But anyway, we'll see what happens. Sounds like they're leaning towards OT, which is fine. I know Mims, I think a teammate of Broderick Jones, I think they overlapped there at Georgia. I could be wrong on that thought, though. Could be coming in. He's a guy who's been thrown around, in a lot of steel and mock drafts. But what do we make of the no center call? There's 3 projected to go in the first round this season. They got rid of Mason Cole. I know Herbig can get slotted in there temporarily if they don't get a high-end center, but they seem confident they can find their guy in the second or third round. Is this something that you're going to lose sleep over given what they've already done, or is this just all right, we'll see what happens kind of deal? Nate, you look eager to go, so we'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm just as surprised as you are, Nick. I would like them to take a center. I mean, it's one of the biggest glaring holes. You don't have anybody there, and Herbig, I mean, just doesn't really have the experience to put him in there. Um, I mean, I get the idea of trying to, fix, your tackle situation with Dan Moore, but um, there's some solid options out there. But I mean, so much talk has been surrounded by the center position. I think it just makes the most sense. I mean, there were so many issues with snapping the ball last year that has to be fixed. And you could talk about wide receivers or defensive backs or what have you of where you want to go, but I think center is the situation you need to address. I mean, if you don't do it in the first round, who knows who's going to be there in the second round? I mean, Zach Frazier might be there, and that's the guy that so many people have been talking about. But why, have that situation where you might not have someone you really want to take at that point? I would just go for it and get a center.
Yeah, get your guy. I think that's the biggest thing. I don't think I'm going to lose sleep over it, but you need to get your guy. You saw the issues that the Steelers had at that position. You let a few guys go that were in that position last year. Um, you know, the offensive line is still a big need for this team, but if you're gonna focus on just one particular position on that line, it's got to be the center. If you're wanting to shore up this offense in this offensive line as a whole, you need to get your guy in round one. You can't wait for like a Kendrick Green type of draft pick like they did back in what was that 21? I think in the second or third round. They can't wait because odds are it's going to wind up like a draft pick's going to wind up like that again. You need to get a guy that has the upside that's proven at the collegiate level that he can play and that enough about, especially early on, that he has the intangibles to play in that position, not move and shift to a different position on the line, but can actually play the center position and just build off of that. I think that's going to be key for them moving forward, and for them not to take a center in the first round is just blasphemy.
Yeah, I think you need that anchor. You guys both kind of touched on it a little bit. Last year's center play was horrendous. It was a disaster, snapping the ball into the dirt in a playoff game multiple times during. I know the Steelers felt like they were kind of out of that game, but they actually got fairly close towards the end. Like there was a moment where there was some hope, and snapping the ball into the ground 2 or 3 times on a crucial drive like that, it's unacceptable. You need that anchor. I don't want to see them grab a guy and move him over to center and say, "Let's see if he can do it." No, go get your guy. The talent's in the draft this year. If they find some sort of defensive back that they like enough, that's the only other thing I'll really be stoked with. They get another tackle. It's like, all right, good. The whole line, as we've all kind of agreed, needs work. But if you're going to get someone for the O line, just get it a damn center. Just get a damn center. Wide receiver, am I sold on the guys they've brought in? No. No. But do I think that's some draft need where I'm going to be, oh, look at Omar Khan. He's cooking because he got some wide receiver in the first round? No. I don't think it's that dire. I'm still pretty confident Tyler Boyd's going to end up in a Steelers uniform this year. But look at Puka Nakua. There's wide receivers that you can have that break out way deeper in the draft, whereas I think the talent pool for a center-like position, it's going to drop off pretty steep. So go get your guy. That's all I have to say. Go get your guy.
I mean, the Steelers have done it so much where they've drafted late wide receivers and transformed them into pretty solid athletes and talent. But I mean, the thing is, I was just taking a quick peek at Pro Football Focus and their big board. The Steelers have, first of all, the Steelers have 4 top 100 picks with the first, second, and they have 2 in the third round.
Mm-hmm.
There's only 3 centers on the big board in the top 100. Zach Frazier's at 32, and then there's a Georgia center at like 92. There's not a lot of options there for centers. It's not a deep draft class there. Where it is deep, at the wide receiver position, 21 in the top 100. They'll have their time to select someone. They will. And same with the offensive tackle. There's 17. And obviously you have two positions to fill, but you have Broderick Jones that's going to slot in at either or wherever they move him to or keep him where he's at. But I mean, you really have to address that center position. And then I think, which first of all, they missed out, in free agency on some of the names that were out there, but you have a chance to pick at least a top end guy in Frazier or Powers Johnson from Oregon. The Steelers can't miss out on one of those two guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. They need to get it done. There's no excuse. If they have a big name guy like that there available to them, there's no excuse not to take him. Maybe it's a diversion tactic. Maybe he said hopefully, knowing it's probably not the truth. But yeah, we'll see what happens with that center position. Nate, did you want to talk about Bud Carrington at all, or do you just want to move on to our last call for the evening here?
No, let's go for it. Let's talk about
All
Bob.
right. Bub's going to the NBA. It was done in a very odd way, with Pitt announcing a press conference with this mystery player. Coach Capel and a mystery player. It's like some WWE gimmick. Who's going to fight Randy Orton in a cage match? We'll find out tonight on Raw. Who's going to join Capel at the press conference stand? Bub Carrington going to the NBA. Little fresh wound after Blake Hinson. He's gone. Especially because Bub said he was going to come back. But Nate, what does this mean for this Pitt program?
Yeah, you can never be too sure when someone says, for sure, I'll be back. After the loss in North Carolina, or at DC against North Carolina in the Atlantic Coast Conference tournament. But it has its pros and cons. Obviously, you have to retool at the guard position, at least either in the portal or whatever you may have you. But I mean, they still have Jalen Lowe, who announced today that he'll be back for year two, not heading out elsewhere in the portal or wherever. Ish Leggett was also a very, very solid choice off the bench, and he'll most likely start for the Panthers next year. And then you got Brandon Biba Cummings, who Ethan and I have had the privilege to cover a couple times this year, and he's a heck of a player. I mean, he's going to see a good chunk of minutes off the bench probably, unless they bring in a transfer guard, which also could happen. But it's a good thing for Pitt. I mean, you haven't had a one and done since Steven Adams, and Pitt's not really a place that happens often, obviously. I think this is only the third time that's happened where they've sent a one and done into the draft, and it's a good thing because now players know that, okay, Pitt's a place where I can go and potentially get draft prospects from there. And this is already the second guy that Cape was sent off into the draft with Justin Champagnie. And then Mo Gee was also a guy under Capel who was signed and made his way back into the NBA. He's played a little bit this year. But it's a really good thing for recruiting, for transfer portaling, which they've lost a couple guys recently that they wanted to target, some big men in the portal. But it's a huge thing when it comes to recruiting. And the way I think that Pitt's NIL collective is going, they're going to have money to give guys eventually who want to go on and play. And the biggest name right now has to be Malik Thomas, the Lincoln Park kid, who's going to be coming out in the class of 2025 and the highest rated player, I think, ever out of the WPIAL since ratings started. And now it goes to show that, hey, Pitt can really, really give you a platform to go out and play. And Carrington, I think he's just a little young. I think he's a little raw to go into the league. But, I mean, there was a mock draft, I think, in like towards the end of February that had him going like top 25. So they think highly of him. NBA scouts have been out to Pitt since basically week 2 of the season after that triple-double to open the year. He's 6'5". He's got the size, got the shooting skills. So, I mean, he's got a lethal. I love his mid-range jumpers. But all in all, I think it's a good thing, and I think Pitt fans shouldn't worry about it in the long run.
Yeah, I think, I'll just hit on what Nate really said is, it's just a great thing for recruiting now. That Caples now has, I mean, obviously Bob going one and done, but like you said, Nate Champagnie getting into the league, and just having those guys and that experience of being able to develop players and lead them into success in the NBA and into the NBA draft. Is just a great thing for recruiting on all facets there. And you got some guys that they're really targeting. I really think this opens up the door for Beba, especially coming in as a freshman. Um, like you said, to get more playing time than he would have before if Bub still stayed on the team for another season. So I think that's huge for him, and I think that's huge for his development. It's gonna be interesting to see how that all plays out throughout the summer and moving forward. But yeah, I think I watched a little bit of that press conference, and I didn't have my um, ears to the ground and really following this Pitt team closely all throughout the season. But it seemed like from day one, I know Jeff Capel knew Bub's father prior to Bub committing to Pitt, but he was just high on the kid from day one after the first time he saw him in a tournament. And just from there, he just continued to work and continued to grind out and um, just never really stopped working, and the results showed after the summer and into the season. So I mean, if you're Pitt, you can't be more happy for the success that he had this year and the exposure that he brought, that he will bring, that he has brought and will bring to this program moving forward. So it's just all in all, it's positives all around for this Pitt program to send Bob Carrington to the draft after just his freshman season.
Yeah, there's not much more I can add to that because my opinion's also shared, and you two both went into great detail with it as Ethan evaporates into dust. I understand why it's frustrating for Pitt fans to lose a guy like Bob Carrington, who was so electric and made an impact almost immediately. Well, immediately, Nate, you mentioned he had that triple double in game one, but at the same time, in the long run, it makes Coach Capel look good. It makes the program look good. So as much as it stings right now for the future, I think this just means good things for that Pitt men's basketball program. But with that in mind, now it's time for last call, where we give our final thoughts on any sports topic or pop culture, as I like to do every now and then. And I always go last, but today I'm going to go first. And it's not because I'm worried one of these leeches is going to steal my thought. It's just because I wanted to go first because I want to change it up a bit. Yeah. So today there was another press conference that I was watching. This got rumored late last night. I was texting Ethan about it right before I went to bed. If I died in my sleep, the last person I talked to would have been Ethan Morrison, and I don't know if he appreciates the weight that honor would have carried. But anyway, last night I see a tweet go out that Mercyhurst University is going to join the NEC, and it's going to be formally announced tomorrow. So then this morning comes around, and there's some random man on the Mercyhurst social saying, "Hey, we got a big announcement coming up at 10:30." I go, "Very nice, random man." And then a little while later, it was 10:30, and Mercyhurst says, "We are joining the NEC. We're going D1." They had this cool little Carpe Diem hashtag with the D1 as Diem. So it's actually happening. And for me, as someone who was born and raised in Erie, this is awesome. This is absolutely awesome. And I get there's concerns. I tweeted about concerns. But for now, I'm not going to worry about the alumni support, the fan support, the resources, whatever. For now, I'm just going to enjoy this moment because my fascination with sports was inevitable, but it was accelerated by a significant amount because every Friday night for most of my childhood, I went to Mercier's women's and Mercier's men's hockey games. I had a dual season ticket where I would just stay, get out of school. My grandpa would pick me up, and I'd watch the women's game, throw down a glizzy or two, watch the men's game. And I know it's crazy because I'm probably the least hockey guy here, but I would spend almost every Friday night, most Saturdays, watching Mercyhurst hockey. And that was their only D1 program. But that eventually turned into, what's their basketball team? Do they have a basketball team? Yeah, Nick, let's go to a basketball game. Do they have a football team? Yeah, let's go to a football game. Do they have a baseball team? Yeah, they're actually really good. They're usually ranked in D2. And I got to go to all these cool events, and none of that happened. My fascination with sports, that is, develops much slower if I didn't go to all those events. And I know I went to RMU, which is like a cardinal sin to go to Robert Morris, who the Mercyhurst women's hockey team and Robert Morris, before Penn State, Syracuse, and all those really big schools came up and joined the conference, that was always like, which one of you is going to actually go to the NCAA tournament? Because one of those two teams always won the CHA. So some of my most early sports memories were watching Mercyhurst play Minnesota Duluth at Mercyhurst. They hosted Minnesota Duluth, a hockey powerhouse, in the women's game. I'm not sure about the men's. They hosted them in Erie, little old Erie, in Mercyhurst little 800-seat hockey arena. I was there. Frozen 4 was in Erie. I was there. And now Mercyhurst is taking that step up to D1, and it's really cool. And you can say whatever you want about the NEC. Things keep going the way they're going with realignment in college sports. You might see DeVry University joining the NEC at this rate. You might see some high schools joining the NEC at this rate. But it's awesome. It's so exciting. As an Erieite, a former Erieite, I have dual citizenship with where I live now in Erie. We'll say that. It's so cool to me that in 5 years, once that stupid probation period is over, there's a legitimate chance the Mercyhurst Lakers from Erie, Pennsylvania could be playing in March Madness. It's absolutely incredible. Erie loves its sports teams. I would know. I interned at a sports commission there, and that was their thing. Erie loves sports. Erie gets sports. That was literally the hashtag. And so this is awesome. This is awesome. And again, there's a lot of concerns I have. There's a lot of concerns people have brought up. But for now, I'm just going to enjoy this for little old Erie. The little mistake on the lake, as some people like to call it. This is pretty cool.
Nick, I'm glad that you took the mic first, because that was your soapbox to stand on, because I'm going down the same road as you were, talking about Mercyhurst and going into something you didn't talk about, something I tweeted about. Mercyhurst joining the NEC in football now provides yet another geographical rival for some of the local Pittsburgh teams, with Duquesne. Robert Morris is joining back into the NEC, and St. Francis. So those 4 teams, to watch them, be able to travel and play each other is going to be awesome. I don't know. I think with the addition of Mercyhurst, they might go to 8 teams. Who knows if they, divide into divisions? Probably not, because that's the way college sports are going, college football specifically, that they're not doing divisions anymore. But play those teams every year. Every single year, those 4 teams should be playing each other, and they will be great matchups, great rivalries. All the kids who don't get recruited into your power conferences now have a chance to stay home and stay local. And it's the next point I wanted to bring up. And Ethan, you and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago at March Madness with some of the quarterbacks that are going to play at some of these specific schools. For Duquesne, you have Logan Kushner, who's the North Allegheny quarterback that is committed there out of the class of 2024. For RMU, Jake Wolf out of Montour, right down the road from RMU. And then Peyton Wayner from Central Catholics going to St. Francis. So you have 3 Whitfield kids who will be freshmen next year in the NEC and will eventually could eventually play each other, in some big time, high stakes NEC football, which will be awesome to see. And I think the other big thing is Mercyhurst provides a good market for the NEC. It's a bigger town, and it could bring in a lot of they can leverage that community. So I think that's big time for Mercyhurst to go and become Division I.
Yeah, absolutely. The other good thing about Erie, I'm going to stall for Ethan a little bit here because I'm not sure what's going on with him. There's about 90,000 people in there, at least. The city itself, I don't know how many are in the county. But the other good thing about Erie is they're located in between Cleveland, Buffalo, and Pittsburgh. So you get any other schools from those kind of areas, you're going to bring in a lot of other people, even visiting fans, to come attend those games, bring some awareness to the Mercyhurst program from people that kind of live within a reasonable driving distance from those big markets. You get some kids who maybe, as you kind of mentioned there, Nate, guys that don't get some offers from big schools that are from those areas. Why not? Mercyhurst gets on the map now. You realize that they're there, the brand recognition. You're 2 hours, an hour and a half away from home. This is a fun little market, I think. And I'm not just totally saying that as a homer of the Erie market, but I mean, it's interesting. It adds a kind of another layer there for some of those guys in that tri-state area. Ethan, welcome back. It's your turn whenever you're ready, if you trust in your connection.
I don't trust my connection at all. Yeah, I just want to touch on UConn, the UConn Huskies. I had no chance that I thought that they would be back in the Final Four this year after winning the tournament last year. I mean, it's such a hard tournament to win, and the road back to it's always tough. But they once again have one of the top teams in the tournament. They've just dominated every team that they have faced over the course of the tournament, beating teams by 30 across the board, regardless of their conference competition, whatever it may be. But I think the NCAA is out to get good old UConn, the Huskies, because their flight did not depart from Connecticut until like 1:30 in the morning yesterday. 1:30 in the morning. What are we doing? There was mechanical issues on their Boeing 737 plane, which is like 30 years old, I've been told, that I've saw across the board. What are we doing, NCAA? The top team in the tournament, UConn, one of the top teams in the tournament, is getting treated like this, and they play on Saturday. It's a disadvantage. But still, I think the Huskies, they're still going to go down to Phoenix, and they're going to dominate, and they're going to make a run for a second consecutive national title once again, because Dan Hurley, the job that he has done for his players to continue to buy in and work towards this again, it's just been a crazy sight to see with how this team has played over the course of these past 2 weeks, because I did not see this coming whatsoever. I hope my connection.
Oh, his connection didn't with that. That's really bad timing. That was glorious timing.
Wow.
I won't even push it by asking him
Wow.
his thoughts on the brand new Fox postseason tournament.
No, if I could, it's a great idea. It's a great idea.
Maybe
I think it's a great idea having those major conferences really get together to play this tournament, especially after the NIT, how that has kind of gone to shambles with the NCAA and how they've kind of changed some things around with that. I'm just very excited to see some major conferences with some teams that did not make the tournament have a chance to compete against one another for 2 weeks outside of the normal NIT, CIT, all of those types of tournaments. It's a different flair to this postseason college basketball that we've come to know.
Absolutely. Well, we thought this was going to be a shorter one. We were close. A little closer than I would have liked it to be. We were close. This has been Straight Into Pittsburgh. Thanks so much for checking us out. We'll see you guys next time.